The thunder of a jet tearing through the sky. A blade of silver fire cutting across clouds. One aircraft for 60 years stood guard over India, shield and sword. Loved by some, detested by enemies, and cursed at times by its pilots. The MiG-21. But the mystery haunting aviation historians is, how does an aircraft born in the gloom of the Cold War era turn into a legend in South Asia? And why, after an impressive 62 years of service, is its final flight in 2025 the end of an era? If you're passionate about aviation history and military stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we dive deep into the untold stories that shaped our skies. This is not just the story of a jet fighter. This is the story of India's rise to the skies. The story of young men and women who climbed into small cockpits, knowing the risks, but choosing to fly anyway because their nation required it. It's the story of how a single plane, technologically outdated by the standards of today, but unmatched in its dedication to the Indian Air Force, came to be the pillar of a whole generation of airmen. 2025 is a milestone year. September 19th, Chandigarh Air Force Station. The last MiG-21 squadron will thunder into the air once more and then fall silent forever. The end of an era. The closure of a chapter that was opened when India was just learning to unfurl its wings as an independent nation. To understand why this farewell is so dear to their hearts, we have to go back in time, back to when India's airspace was precariously vulnerable, and the nation badly needed a guardian angel. Picture this, the early 1960s. The Cold War was in full swing. Pakistan, India's archenemy, had just acquired the powerful F-104 starfighter from the United States, a snazzy supersonic hunter that could cruise at double the speed of sound, the world's first Mach 2 production fighter. India's aging fleets of Hawker hunters and Nats appeared perilously out of date overnight. The government knew they had to have an answer, and an answer they had to have quickly. Enter the Soviet Union's newest wonder, the Mikoyan Gurevich MiG-21, a slender, needle-nosed interceptor that not only equaled the F-104 for speed, but outran it. And, most importantly, something the West was not going to offer. The Soviets were willing to sell or license technology. India purchased its first batch of MiG-21s in 1963, but this was no arms purchase. This was the beginning of a relationship that would define Indian aviation for decades to come. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited began to license produce these fighter aircraft on Indian soil. It was not just about equipment for a country just reaching adulthood. It was about freedom of the skies. And then, the ultimate test by fire. The Second Indo-Pakistani War erupts. Pakistan's shiny new F-104 starfighters were supposed to dominate the subcontinent's airspace. Their pilots were cocky, their machines were advanced, and the world was watching. But in a classic dogfight in the air, Indian Air Force Squadron leader Brij Pal Singh, in his MiG-21, encountered a Pakistani F-104 starfighter head-on. The dogfight was brief but decisive. Singh had the supposedly superior starfighter retreat and break away. Myth of Pakistani air supremacy shattered. The MiG-21 had arrived on the scene. 6 years later, in 1971, the MiG-21 not only fought, it achieved legendary status. The Liberation War of Bangladesh. Indian MiGs flew deep into enemy ranks, bombing Dhaka, destroying airfields, and ruling the skies of East Pakistan. But there is one tale that any Indian pilot can tell verbatim. Wing Commander M.S. Brar, in his MiG-21 alone, was being pursued by 3 Pakistani F-86 Sabres. 3-1 against him, fuel running low, no backup. Most pilots would have considered it a death warrant. But Brar possessed something the enemy never anticipated, a deep understanding of his machine and nerves of steel. He evaded all three sabers, employed the MiG's higher climb rate and speed to advantage, and managed to return home alive. On this day, the MiG-21 was not an aircraft, it was a lifeline, a testament to what could be attained when man and machine complemented each other perfectly. The years passed, and new challenges tested the old warrior to its limits. The Kargil War, high-altitude war in the mountains of Kashmir, precision bombing and close air support in some of the toughest weather to fly in were what the Indian Air Force demanded. MiG-21s, over 3 decades old now, still had to comply. They conducted low-level bombing missions into the death valleys of Dras and Butalik, where Pakistani forces had dug in at altitudes which taxed man and machine to their limits. Some of them never made it back, but their sacrifices proved a decisive point. Even in its twilight years, the MiG-21 stood ready to guard India. And then came February 2019, a flight that would make international headlines and ensure the MiG-21's place in the history of aviation for all time. Indian Mirage 2000s had struck terrorist training camps in Balakot, Pakistan, following the Pulwama attack. Pakistani F-16s had intruded into Indian airspace the next day in search of revenge. Wing Commander Abhinandan Vartaman, call sign Abhi, broke away in his MiG-21 Bison. What happened next stunned the world. This pilot, flying what was essentially a 1960s generation design with updated avionics, locked onto a state-of-the-art Pakistani F-16, fired his R-73 missile, and confirmed a kill. The world gasped. The oldest fighter in India's arsenal had just downed one of the most advanced planes in Pakistan's inventory. Abhinandan's subsequent capture and dignified repatriation made him a known face all over India. But the real hero of that battle, that humble MiG-21 Bison, had once again proved that experience and courage could overcome technological superiority. Every myth, however, has its shadow, and the MiG-21s are no exception. Over time, the aircraft gained a black reputation, the flying coffin. Repeated crashes, needless deaths of young pilots in their prime. Headlines in newspapers raised the uncomfortable question, why does India keep flying this old, unsafe aircraft? Reality was more nuanced than the headlines. The MiG-21 was indeed merciless. Its design philosophy was to provide the pilot with no leeway for mistakes of any kind. One mistake, one moment of inattention, and the cost might be his life. But those who knew the machine well had a different story. In the deft care of a proficient, experienced pilot, the MiG-21 was not just safe, it was exceptional. The crashes were regrettable, but too many were the price of pushing a 40-year-old plane into performing tasks it was never designed to perform from the very start. And why did it remain in service so long? Because it continued to evolve. From the MiG-21 FL original, to the M variant, to the MF, to the breathtaking MiG-21 Bison, each model gave this Cold War-era workhorse new fangs for the 21st century battle. The Bison upgrade in particular was impressive. Advanced radar, beyond visual range missiles, and state-of-the-art Israeli avionics. By the 2000s, this was no longer an old Soviet relic in the outback. This was a fighter that could actually hold its own against contemporary foes. To Indian defense planners, a premature phase-out of the MiG-21 would have created dangerous capability gaps, as newer aircraft like the Rafale and the Tejas were being added to the inventory. The MiG-21 continued to fly because India needed it to. Should you speak with any pilot from the Indian Air Force about the MiG-21, you will hear the same saying repeated as if in a mantra. If you master the MiG-21, you can fly anything. Its cockpit was irresistibly claustrophobic, its controls completely analog, its demands stringent. Flying the MiG-21 was like taming a wild Mustang. It required complete focus, lightning reflexes, and almost an intimate familiarity with aerodynamics. But that's precisely what made it such an incredible training ground. The MiG didn't just transport pilots from point A to point B, it shaped them. It earthed them. It taught them that flying wasn't all about machines. It was about skill, courage, and an unbreakable pilot-aircraft bond. When Flying Officer Avani Chaturvedi, the first Indian woman to pilot a solo fighter mission strapped into a MiG-21 cockpit, it was not just a personal victory. It was symbolic. An entire generation of air warriors, both male and female, had cut their teeth on this tough, faithful machine. The MiG-21 did not care. It demanded the best from everyone who dared to fly it, regardless of gender, background, or previous experience. And in return, it gave them wings that would last a lifetime. And now, with 6 stellar decades behind it, the curtain finally falls. September 19th, 2025. Chandigarh Air Force Station. The final Indian Air Force MiG-21 Squadron, number 4 Squadron, the lovingly called Orials, prepares to undertake its last operational mission. Imagine the scene. Grizzled veteran airmen with their eyes watering, remembering their very first flights on these planes. Military Air Force cadets in uniform standing to attention, witnessing an end of an age they've only seen in textbooks. The unmistakable din of those legendary Tumansky engines thundering across the tarmac for the final time. Each takeoff is a tip of the hat to the past. Each flyby is a tribute to those who didn't make it back. Each landing, another goodbye to a faithful servant. This goodbye, though, is not of defeat or of irrelevance. It's a goodbye of transition. The Indian Air Force marches forward into the future with cutting-edge Rafales, multi-role Su-30 MKIs, and indigenously developed Tejas light combat aircraft. The MiG-21 passes on to the next generation with its work accomplished. The story isn't finished with the final landing, though, because the MiG-21 was never just metal and rivets and jet fuel. It was each pilot who risked everything to fly it. Each ground crewman worked around the clock to make it mission ready. Each family holding its breath for its loved one to safely complete every mission. Its actual legacy is not in the accident reports or armchair fault-finding. Its legacy lies in the triumphs it enabled, the courage it drew out of its pilots, and the generations of air warriors it helped forge. The MiG-21's final landing is not the end. It's a salute to 62 extraordinary years of faithful service, to countless daring hearts who made it their sky office, to the humble warrior who taught a young nation how to defend its heavens with pride and tenacity. The MiG-21 has descended for the last time, but in aviation history, in the hearts of those who flew it, and in the culture of the Indian Air Force, it will never really depart the skies. If this incredible story of courage and legacy moved you, show your support by hitting the like button and sharing this tribute with fellow aviation enthusiasts. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from the world of military aviation, because every aircraft has a story, and every story deserves to be remembered.